for a very, very long time, pivot tables were very scary to me, and they were only for people who were like advanced Excel, advanced Google Sheet knowledge. And I'm sad or mad at myself that I waited so long to be able to utilize them because they're very, very simple if you just want to use them for simple things. I use pivot tables mainly for counting and collecting a lot of data and kind of shrinking it down, because I would hope that you would never, ever, ever, although I see people do this all the time, count your cells. So if you want to know how many did one thing, so this right here is a book club response. We had every student in the high school pick a book that they wanted to read for the semester. And so if you, or I've seen people do this where they're like, okay, I need to count how many of this game's a deception book. And they're sitting here counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can't do that. It's so silly because pivot tables are so easy to be able to count your data. And these are for things that you don't even use in the classroom sometimes. I know a lot of you are coaches or run clubs. And if you ever do shirt sizes, never, ever, ever sit there and count 1, 2, 3, 4 for the number of small shirt sizes you need, because a pivot table can calculate that for you very, very, very quickly. And then as you continue to use them, you figure out, oh, well, I can have multiple data angles and make a chart that allows me to get some information very quickly, pulling, different tests and being able to summarize what a student has done might be very helpful, especially if you're multiple teachers trying to merge data together. So I'm going to go over the very simple basics of how to insert a pivot table and how to get yourself set up to be able to see some data. So again, this is just a lot of data, and I know a lot of you don't use this much, but this is every student in our high school picked their first and second choice for what book they would want to read. I just went ahead and numbered my students as numbers and the teachers as numbers so that you didn't see the real information. I would highly recommend, if you ever collect data from your entire school body, to have the students not use their name, have them use their student ID, because it's way more easier for them to get correct, and then, not type their name, lowercase, or not put a space. And so just something when it comes to data collection. But I have all this data. I'm going to select all of it, use that, point right here that gets all of my data selected, and I'm going to go to Insert, Pivot Table right here. And then I'm going to put it on a new sheet. So it'll add a new tab down here at the bottom. I don't want it to be floating around inside of this sheet that we're working in. So I'm just going to do new sheet and hit create. And then this is where people are like, well, that didn't do anything. That didn't help me at all. But you need to drag and drop or add in your information. And so the first thing I want to know is how many kids picked what book, like how many options for each book. And so that I want to look at their first choices. I want to see if we could just use their first choice option. So in my head, if I know I want numbers, I want to get their first choice. I want that to be their value, because that's going to be the number of books. So I'm going to drag first choice to values. And then I instantly just get a sum of how many books were picked. And so now I want to break it down also by first choice. So as I could see, I want to break this number into each book. So that means that I want to go 1, 2, 3, go down. So that's rows. I don't want to go out columns. So I'm going to drag first choice to rows. And then you can see how quickly I took 299 rows of data and summarized that into 16 kids picked this book, 44 kids picked this book. And hopefully you see how, oh my gosh, how quickly that can help you count information. If you have, like, again, the shirt sizes, really, really helpful for things like that. Checking out lab equipment, checking out, ball equipment, different things that you can utilize this for. And so that's just very interesting how you can break that down. Did I understand where to drag and drop this stuff to at the first time I used these? Absolutely not. You can mess up, and guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect or change anything on your data. And so that's another reason I like them, is that it's going to let me modify and look at and, kind of preview what the data looks like. And I don't have to worry about breaking anything or changing anything. Nobody's going to drag and drop and mess up what I originally had. So that's very, very helpful. And again, if you mess up, you just X this out and add it again or try it again. And so I might switch this over to columns. And you can see that it does exactly what we had in the rows. It just stretches it out so it's a little bit harder to see, but it has the same information. This book, 16 kids picked that book. So it's just something that you can be like, oh, well, that's close, but it's not quite what I want. So I'm going to drag that back to rows. And then right here, this is going to sort you can, alphabetical order, and then you can, this is where it's saying, okay, I want to pick this, not the number of them, but the actual book needs to be sorted by the book title. And then if you look over here, I have a blank. So one of the kids must have left a blank, or, something happened where they caused a blank. Or let's say you just want to filter out a specific book. You can do that. Filters is right here. I'm going to have to move me over just a second. I'm going to add a filter. And then I want to filter the first choice, that book option that they picked. And then right now it's showing all of the options. And if I go in here, those are all of the books that are checked. And then blank is also checked. So if I uncheck blank and hit OK, it'll take out that blank option so I don't have to see that there was a blank. Or let's say I want to really focus on 2 different books and take out some of these other ones. I could clear the selections and then only pick this book, and then those are the numbers that I'm going to get. And then I see a new total based on just what I filtered out. So something to think about, as well as being able to see all of the options, as you can filter it down to see specific options. So I'm going to X out that filter, and I want to show you one more thing because I have a little bit more data here. I also know what advisory or homeroom, that's our homeroom, are my students that pick these books are in. And so now I want to think, okay, what is going to be in each advisory? How many books does each advisory teacher need? And then so that we can see where they need to go. So if we deliver all these books. And so I could drag that advisory teacher inside rows as well. And it's going to give me the information. It's just going to be book by book. And so I can see, okay, this book, teacher 1 gets 1, teacher 11 gets 2. And so it's just kind of set up in a have to scroll way, but it's getting closer to what I want, where I know what teacher needs how many of each book. But I'm going to switch that advisory teacher over to the columns and drag that here into columns. And now this is what I really wanted to see. I wanted to be able to say, okay, teacher 1 has 17 books that they need. That's probably how many kids are in their homeroom or their advisory. And then now I can go, okay, they need 2 of that book, 1 of that book. And you can see how that lays that out to where when we go to sort these books, we have that information. So being able to play around and drag and drop and never touch or mess with our original data is very helpful. So that's really why I like pivot tables. I'm going to show you another way that I like pivot tables, and this one might not make as much sense as far as the data, because this was a test that I gave my students about graphic design. And so if you look at these pieces of information here, these are graphic design terms. But I'm looking at one of these questions, and I wanted the kids to know the difference between spacing, leading, and kerning. And as you can see, as you're looking down, they really messed them up. Nobody's consistently picking the right answer in any of these questions. So I want to kind of see where they're getting it wrong, or what the majority is answering for each question. So I can do that same thing. I could highlight this, insert a pivot table, and then I might just look at one question and see where they're going wrong, like how many people are getting the right answer and how many people are getting the wrong answer. And so right here, space between lines is going to be my rows. That's the question that I asked. And those are the possible answers. It was a multiple choice question. And then now I'm going to take that same thing, because I want the values, the numbers per answer, and put that under value. You can also hit add here to get these. The same things pop up, but just the fill thing shows up, so it's kind of frustrating. So I just drag and drop most of the time. And so now I can see for this question, I might double click here to see that whole question, what the space between lines is, and it's actually letting is the correct answer. But a lot of people put tracking. So I can instantly see as a teacher that I've made a mistake. I have not taught this information correctly, because more people are getting the wrong answer than they're getting the right answer. And so something that you can use to summarize maybe some of your quizzes, your tests, your units, so you can just see the number of answers per question. So just a different way to use pivot tables. Hopefully that gives you some information, and you'll be able to use that in your classes.